The Irish Revolution of 1641 was a long-term result of the plantation policy.
The plantation policy of Tudor and Stuart monarchs, under which Ireland was aggressively colonized by Protestant settlers from England and Scotland. The plantation policy said that Irish landowners were to get rid of their land to make way for the settlers. Thus began a vicious cycle where they had to leave.
The dispossessed landowners led a rebellion against the English government. English Protestants outnumbered the Irish Catholics, and the Roman Catholic Church was threatened.
Sir Thomas Wentworth, Lord Lieutenant of Ireland, was sent by England to antagonize all parties in Ireland. Wentworth worked to raise tax revenues for the Crown and to break the power of the Catholic Irish nobility. Even when Wentworth was recalled back to England in 1640, his policies were continued. They were never reviewed or revised, simply accepted.
English Protestants ruled the government and did not allow Irish Catholics to hold office.
English Protestants dominated the government of Ireland, and Catholics were barred from holding state office. The Irish Parliament was seen as underneath the English Parliament. Eventually, a law was passed that said the Irish Parliament had to allow election of English and Scottish Protestants, which resulted in a Protestant majority in the Irish Parliament.
Sir Roger O'More and Sir William O'Neill became prominent leaders of the Irish. They became the high spirits and strategists of the rebellion. Oliver Cromwell was the leader of the English Protestants who fought in the Irish rebels. In 1641, when the plantation of Ulster was in the hands of the rebels, Sir William had an army of 30,000 armed with knives, pitchforks, scythes, and every weapon they could lay their hands on. Owen Roe O'Neill became even more important to the Irish. He led the rest of the war.
Unfortunately, the battle lasted until 1652, which resulted in the Irish losing to Cromwell. Cromwell then passed an act called Act for the Settlement of Ireland. It said that anyone who had participated in the Irish Rebellion's early stages and who had killed any Englishman other than in battle lost their lives and estates. Even Catholic clergymen were also part of this act.
In the early stages of the rebellion, women rose to prominence as leaders and active participants. However, as the rebellion became a war, the role of women changed. During wartime, women occupied a critical logistical role in the armies of the 16th and 17th century, assuming roles in cooking, foraging, washing, and medical aid that were almost never considered a priority by commanders.
Poetry from that time reflects how many of the Irishmen felt. One poet wrote, "All the Irishmen, without exception, must link themselves or die." This shows how together they were as a country and as people. Another poet wrote, "The religion of Christ, with the religion of Luther, it is like ashes in the snow." This shows the difference between what the Catholics and Protestants saw between themselves. Another poet wrote, "We do not say, 'You rascal of Papist,' but 'Dog of Cromwell' is our password. Which goes there does not frighten us. 'I am Irish' is our answer." This shows the humongous pride the Irish had in themselves, even when faced with the Protestants at their door.
In recent research, I have found that relations between Britain and Ireland are still bad. You see, the Irish Republican Brotherhood, which is an organization that had been used before in the revolt of Thomas J. Clark, we will get back to him, and was reorganized for this new cause under leaders Bulmer Hobson and Sean McDermott from Dublin. This leadership spread across Ireland and was supported by not only the Gaelic League, but the Republic too. You see, the Easter Rising was an attack in 1916 that took over the General Post Office in Dublin, led by followers of the Irish Republican Brotherhood, that we will call IRB from now on. It's really long. But the British soldiers ambushed them along in it, and what survivors there were from the Irish side surrendered to the British Army on April 29th. 1916. I found it interesting that a man named Tom Clark was born and raised in Britain as a sergeant for the British Army, but later joined the RIB under the alias of Henry Wilson. It also interested me that so many treaties and agreements had to be made for Ireland, like the Anglo-Irish Treaty of 1921 and the Anglo-Irish Agreement of 1985. Other leagues that were made during this time is the Parmalite Irish National League, made in 1890, and the Irish Volunteers, made in 1913. This concludes our segment on the wonderful, 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 and tragic
So now we will answer the following question. I know. Honestly, the Irish Rebellion, I think, was successful. If the Irish had never rebelled against the English, they would probably be completely oppressed at this time. Even though, even today, they are still at war between the Catholics and Protestants, it is important to stand up for what you believe in, which I think is a very good lesson that the Irish Catholics have shown.
I have to agree with Kaitlin that I believe it was successful. And if they hadn't started the rebellion, then they would still be under British rule. Even though today there's many things that are striking against the peace, they're still working hard to fight for what they believe in.
Many may ask, well, wouldn't less people have died if they had never risen against the British? Well, yes, that might be true. But what would their quality of life have been if they had if they had continued to be submissive to the British? They would have no power, no voice. And what kind of life would that be? I think that would be no life at all. So, any other opinions, ladies? I think this concludes our segment, and have a good night.